let's look at a man who truly pushes to the limit just an opinion. Varg Vikernes. For the non-metalheads, yeah, he's that guy that burned the churches and killed the bandmate and said the Nazi stuff, etc. Here's a nice little opinion he's got. Varg is fascinated and nigh obsessed with genealogy and race science, mainly to give some pseudo-scientific credibility to his fantastical world crafting and mythological storytelling he calls reality. One such piece of lore craft is the claim that, on behalf of Europeans, our heritage is Neanderthal, as my wife Marie Cachet proved in her book, The Mystery of the Bear. We are their descendants. Our gods are our own, and they always have been. Our roots go back at least 500,000 years here in Europe. Europe is our homeland, as is most of the northern hemisphere. We are largely unmixed. In fact, we are a completely different species. He goes on to claim how Europeans are more Neanderthal than Homo sapiens, and that the modern Judeo-Christian pathogen brainwashed us into thinking otherwise, that our Neanderthal lineage has been tainted and dragged through the mud by weak, liberal gayness. All of this is, of course, just an elaborate excuse to be racist, to call for the deaths of black and brown people, or at the very least create some kind of segregated world order, so precious white Neanderthal descendants can live in peace and harmony. No information is given about how multiple human species have coexisted with Neanderthals, such as Homo heidelbergensis and the far more ancient Homo erectus. Where did the Neanderthal come from? Did they suddenly spawn from the earth, isolated in the northern wastes? No. It's commonly thought that Homo erectus was the first species to truly branch out and expand into the various continents, of which Europe was one. Even then, all of these human species had a considerable amount of interbreeding, and the Homo sapiens and Neanderthal came to being from their common Homo erectus ancestors, of which came into being from their various other human ancestors, of which came from certain Australopithecus species, and so on. Neanderthals are not a divinely special species destined for greatness, and tragically spurned by the devilish Homo sapiens. So, after that complete owning with facts and logic took place, what happened? Maybe a nerd or two watching this video lets out a little exhale or finger clap. Was anything I just discussed convincing to the man? Is an in-depth discussion of anthropology and the various human species across time enough to convince someone like Varg to rethink his genealogical obsession? No. In fact, he could probably spit out just as much, if not far more, random facts and shit about this. He already has a desire to justify his racism and white supremacist beliefs. Statements like the one shown may nominally be opinions, but for him, they are expressions of his truth. He believes this to be true, and that's all that matters. He doesn't mind getting called out or refuted, etc. That just means he can move on to the next phase, assertion and dominance. This is the game. In our liberal society, the individual is posited as the supreme being and the key for a more perfect society. For the society to prosper, the individual must prosper, and therefore, an individual will do what they must to prosper. Our societal structures are designed to cater to the individual, and we bear responsibility for the outcome of these structures. All we can aim to control or strive towards is the perfection of us as individuals. We can cast one vote, do one job, share one opinion. This opinion is the individual's, and because the individual is supreme, this opinion is supreme, and thereby truth. Varg feels comfortable expressing his opinion because he knows his opinion is truth, because he is the only individual capable of knowing his truth. The opinion is the vehicle in which belief becomes truth and reality. And this is where the confidence comes in. The pretense of opinion grants plausible deniability and an anything goes veneer. After all, it is just an opinion. But within, you know the veracity of which you feel in this belief. After all, it is yours as a mighty individual. The opinion can be freely unleashed as weightless, while being attached to an invisible lead ball of belief in its truth. It can even be stated as truth while falling back to the realm of opinion when necessary, because it is both truth and opinion simultaneously. You can retreat back to the comfortable shell of opinion whenever you please. It truly is a perfect rhetorical Trojan horse, and both opinion and truth are perfectly interchangeable. Now, of course, this is fucking bullshit. And even more obviously, noxious opinions like these have a utility in being propagated. It justifies the very real and material oppression of a certain group of people. In Varg's genealogical case, not only black and brown people, but anyone that falls under the nebulous category of Judeo-Christian. Varg, being a famous and influential figure, grants great utility towards those seeking justification for, in this case, racist belief, and in turn, racist policy. A white supremacist belief in the hands of the powerful begets white supremacist policy, such as racial profiling police, mass incarceration, redlining and gentrification, insecure housing or food access, even straight up apartheid and slavery, and so on. All justified by the belief, spoken into power, via opinion of racial supremacy. Opinion is the rhetorical weapon of the fascist. An opinion cannot be refuted, but the hidden belief in its truth can never be fully exposed, at least never convincingly enough to the fascist for them to reconsider their truths. In liberal society, where everyone is entitled to an opinion, it becomes a free pass for unlimited ideological bombardment, unable to be stopped but impossible to pin down. Brandolini's law, the bullshit asymmetry principle, that the amount of energy needed to refute bullshit is an order of magnitude larger than that needed to produce it. As a fascist, you can dial up or down the ridiculousness of the opinion as you see fit. Go with the ancient race science Neanderthal sabotage approach, or perhaps the classic 1350 strategy. Both propagate the notion of white supremacy and need for political reprisal, and both take the guise of innocuous statistics and fact, whilst simultaneously being just an opinion. You can hammer home how true of a statement this is to your heart's content. It's true to you and anyone who wants it to be true, and truth famously doesn't care about your feelings, etc. Proposed truth is respectable, its merits self-evident, but can easily morph into the rhetorical sword and shield of opinion when met with opposing truth, which is protected absolutely under its mystic shroud of individualist supremacy. Truth cannot be emotionally appealed to, and opinion cannot be factually appealed to, nor rebuked as wrong. All that remains is steadfast belief and conviction of yourself and whoever follows suit. But that's not all that's involved in this twisted game. The right values this rhetorical cheat code as it plays to their core philosophical tenet. Might makes right. Strength must be imposed. Victory must be achieved, no matter the cost. It's okay because I can, and therefore I should. Veneers of respectability or politeness will be utilized in order to achieve victory and impose dominance. They will take advantage of your empathy, compassion, and fairness. In fact, these core tenets of the left will be co-opted to better suit the fascist initiative. All lives matter plays on empathy and compassion of humanity, while intentionally disparaging a particular group of lives. The right will smear the left as anti-Semitic for being vocal against the genocide in Gaza, and it has an effect only due to the empathy, compassion, and fairness integral to the left. A leftist does not want to be compassionate or unfair, and an affront to these core values is taken seriously. The right doesn't give a fuck about being labeled a racist or anti-Semite, insofar as they want to remain respectable. If a fascist cared about being empathetic, compassionate, or fair, they wouldn't hold bigoted, uncompassionate beliefs. This only matters to those attempting a covert rhetorical operation. Those who don't care about going mask off, of which we see more and more of, drop the Respectability Act altogether. They will be blatantly racist or anti-Semitic. They will intentionally cause physical or emotional harm and wear it as a badge of honor. But you, the miserable, empathetic leftists, cannot play by these open sandbox rules, or lack thereof. You must adhere to the utmost respectability and rule following. Otherwise, well, you wouldn't be as compassionate and fair as you think, hypocrite. Rules for thee, not for me, and some such. A fascist once branded as anti-Semitic or racist, etc., can, without second thought, embrace this label and drop the veneer of truth-reciting respectability, entering his other form, the man of invincible opinion. Of course, this opinion is only treated as opinion to you, the opponent, playing by some kind of rules in some concocted game. It was always his truth. Your little facts and logic attempt was just a warm-up for the no-restriction showdown coming up. Presenting your fascist rhetoric as fact or opinion is interchangeable, for they are essentially the same thing, needing only a sly wielder to know when to use which. This first round is nothing but a trap, an enticement of potential victory over the fascist, and you may very well win this first round, but the fascist doesn't care. They're just waiting for round 2. The goal of this round 2 showdown is to annihilate the enemy.
I don't want touch, I don't want a relationship. You know what I want? Total Aryan victory. That's all I want. I didn't choose that. All I want is revenge against my enemies and a total Aryan victory. Hugs and kisses, touch, sappy stuff, hand-holding, please. All I want is revenge and an Aryan victory for my people.
The fascist knows this and sharpens their weapons underneath the table during round 1. Their priority is themselves and their in-group. You earned yourself a death wish the moment you started playing the game as an opponent. Once round 1 is finished, round 2 begins with a brandishing of weapons. You, valuing fairness and good old rule following, fell for the flimsy rulebook in round 1 that stated violence was not allowed and peaceful discourse is the only acceptable recourse, and thus, you stand in round 2 with nothing but pleas for mercy. The fascist doesn't value mercy or empathy. These are vile notions to him. It's round 2, bitch. The winner takes it all. Fascists are always champing at the bit to get to round 2. It's where they can finally throw off their pathetic facade of respectability, and their core tenet of might makes right gets to truly shine. Opinion is but a means of getting to this no-holds-barred combat round, but that doesn't mean that round 1 isn't embraced and the strategy perfected. Let's look at another example of the opinion game. Gun control, like vaccines and masks, is focused on making people feel safe by taking freedoms away from others. Don't fall for it. Your immediate impulse might be to lay out horrendous gun violence statistics and mass shootings, or historical vaccine efficacy in eradicating diseases. Causing preventable deaths is pretty clearly an infringement of freedom, for a ton of people anyway. This statement is obviously dumb as shit. Easy dubs, right? But he posits this statement from a position of faux compassion for people's freedoms. Do you not care about other people and their right to exist? Sounds like the left isn't so tolerant after all. His opinion here contains his personal truth of righteous defense, a compassionate stand against those attempting to whisk freedom away. Anything antagonistic to this opinion is hypocritical and insensitive. Anything antagonistic to this truth is worthy of moving on to round 2, for our individual freedoms are worthy of protecting at any cost. Square up, liberal. Except skilled round 1 players know not to throw the first punch in round 2. They understand the role they play in getting as much out of round 2 as possible. A skilled fascist propagandist or orator knows their strength lies in maximizing the output of righteous violence, and that means delaying gratification as opposed to getting into an individual scrap. Joseph Goebbels spewed vitriolic, hateful rhetoric that resulted in countless deaths, but he never threw a punch or shot a pistol. He was a master of round 1, and could time the unleashing of round 2 perfectly, i.e. allowing brown shirt thugs, Gestapo police, or SS soldiers to respond to dissident communist Jews or other targeted groups trapped in the game of just an opinion. Varg knows how to throw some crazy shit out there and ensnare opponents into the game, but he can't, or at least couldn't, resist starting up the next round. He relishes flaunting combat skills and malicious intent, but that could only amount to a limited output of righteous fury. Now, of course, none of this is just a game. I understand this analogy is quite morbid and trivializing. Like I said previously, very real, serious material consequences like murder, pogroms, lynchings, and genocide are the result of round 2. It only feels like a game because fascists know They have the full weight of the system behind them. The mainstream media does nothing but ensnare those with a shred of empathy, compassion, or fairness into the game, and hurls in champions seeking fresh fighters to potentially go the distance with. Those that own mainstream media, as well as basically everything else, appreciate the utility hate and fighting amongst ourselves has on their preservation of power. These owners control a state apparatus that has a monopoly on violence. The only people allowed to jump straight to round 2 are the police, military, and private defense contractors, and good luck fighting them on your own. You, the egalitarian, compassionate, empathetic leftists, have 2 options. 1, fall for the trap, go for a high score. There are quite a few of us that have racked up quite the high score, something not entirely useless, albeit doomed. The doom is certain due to the isolation. An individual valiantly going against the entirety of this system can only go so far alone. Even if the initial combatant in round 2 is vanquished, it will inevitably have to deal with those holding a monopoly on violence, and they have no qualms in using it. Additionally, the game warps your sense of principle and purpose. It convinces you that this whole politics thing is just a game you play on the internets here and there, and the edgier the quippy meme response to a current event, the better. Material reality and political consequence become so abstract that this game, in essence, becomes reality. It becomes truth. Even in victory, we all lose. Except them, of course. And then 2, maximize your egalitarian, compassionate, and empathetic principles. Help those in need unconditionally. Develop mutual aid in your communities and build something worth fighting for. Educate yourself and one another. Pursue your artistic vision and help build a society where we all can do the same. This is freedom. Freedom from the entrapment of this twisted game, where the very concept of freedom is nothing but a tool for inflicting righteous violence. Only then can we become capable of fighting a somewhat fair fight, when our ideals are put into action, for all to see and our humanity is undeniable, where someone seeking a fight with us is blatantly and obviously a fight of self-interest against the good of society, where a facade of the marketplace of ideas is rightfully destroyed, and this fucked up game is exposed for what it really is, just a fucked up game.